All right, good morning and welcome back to the Football Tribe UG channel. Robert Kesakos is your usual suspect. Welcome back to yet another live broadcast on your favorite football updates channel. It's a pleasure to be back on this beautiful Thursday morning, half past the hour of 9 a.m. We do come to you live from the streets of Kampala to yet again discuss the latest from the world of football. Following last night's action, from the UEFA Champions League, but also issues that are happening over there in the Spanish La Liga. It's something that we did tackle upon briefly in one of our live broadcasts during our Tuesday broadcast in the night, in the aftermath, or during and in the aftermath of Arsenal's 4-0 victory against Atletico de Madrid. So we'll be reviewing, we'll be discussing that and more. But yeah, and in today's episode, we'll also shed more light on Liverpool. Are they back? Because last night they put five past entrenched Frankfurt in the UEFA Champions League. Something that we had not seen in a bit of a while. In over a month, Liverpool had yet to win a game of football. While they had managed to score some goals, they did struggle to get even a single point out of it. So there's we'll also talk about the La Liga Roar, sorry, not Roar, La Liga Roar, you know, not Roar, Roar, yes. Okay, we'll kick things off with the Spanish La Liga because players, we told you that players were playing games over the weekend in protest over the proposed move over the Barcelona game against Villarreal to take it to the USA in Miami, and that game, things have been protested and players protested, fans have protested this, what now? Those games were set to be, particularly the game between Villarreal and Barcelona, was set to be played on the 21st of December. Now, according to Sky Sports, they did come out to reveal that apparently the organizer of the game said they did not have enough time to organize this game, which I do not want to believe to be true. Otherwise, I think they're trying to escape away from the backlash that has come from the fans. Over the weekend, players were protesting for the first 15-20 seconds of the game. Once the game started, they all stood still. They all stood still to protest this, to protest La Liga's move to take a Spanish La Liga game, over to the USA. So, and according to reports as of Tuesday night, they did say that La Liga says plans to hold a regular season match between Villarreal and Barcelona in Miami December have been cancelled. In August, the Spanish Federation had approved plans to move the Villarreal's fixture against Barcelona to the Hard Rock Stadium on the 20th of December, a decision that sparked discontent in Spain. Now, for those of you that are regulars on this channel, it's something that we had discussed when Pedri brought it to us. And my opinion was that it was never going to sit well with the domestic fans. It was never going to be a popular decision. However, on the other side, you look, because of the popularity of purposely or particularly the Premier League, I think most of the leagues across Europe are looking at the Premier League and the kinds of revenues they do generate from broadcast revenue and things like that, and its entire popularity across the globe. Now, of course, it's not the most popular league in every country you walk into, but if let's say you had 100 countries that are, fully engaged with football, you'll find that at least maybe 60% of those have, the Premier League as their favorite or second favorite league, maybe second to the domestic league. So particularly, you won't go to Germany and the Premier League is the most popular league. Of course, it's the German Bundesliga, but when you go to a market like the USA market, which is a very, very big market, yes, they have their Major League Soccer, but you would argue, I think, to a certain level that perhaps the Premier League is more popular over in the US than the Major League Soccer is, then of course you cannot go to, let's say, to France and say that the Premier League is more popular than the French League One. That's not the case. But when you come to Uganda, the Premier League is more popular than the Uganda Premier League. That's just a statement of fact. When you go over to Kenya, when you go over to Tanzania, of course, there could be outlier games within those particular leagues that fans may put ahead of any engagement that the Premier League may have ongoing, but in the overall sense of things. So when you look at it in that sense, I think leagues are trying to work towards that. If you, for example, the German Bundesliga at the start of this season went into an agreement with a YouTuber called Mark Goldrich. I do not know if there's anybody else to do watch-alongs for the German Bundesliga. And why is that the case? Because they do it every Friday night. It does it every Friday night, regardless of whatever teams are playing. They do a watch-along. Why is that the case? The goal or the objective is to try and popularize the German Bundesliga, to endear it to more fans across the globe, because they know these are channels that are being followed by literally the entire globe. You sit here in Uganda and you're watching, the content over there in the UK. Somebody is in Turkey. Somebody is down in South Africa, wherever across the globe, as long as they can access YouTube and internet. That's it. So they are building towards that. Now, also, I looked at it in the marketing, perspective to say that, look, domestically, it's going to be a very unpopular decision, as has been reported widely. But from a marketing sense, I do understand maybe what La Liga should be thinking is, how do they get to promote that game overseas without necessarily having to carry out games? You remember the Supercopa Hispana game that was played, I think, in Saudi Arabia. Huge sums of money were paid for that. They got the revenue, but also Saudi Arabia have their own agendas when it comes to wanting to host international sports tournaments, because remember they're set to host the World Cup 2034. So back to the point is that La Liga looked at it. Perhaps I want to believe with my football sense that it's a marketing gimmick. They want to simply promote the La Liga, and also to sort of increase on the revenues. Barcelona, one of the teams that was involved in the fixture that was said to be taken away, we know is a team that has struggled with finances. Yesterday, I was reading a post on X. I do not know to what extent of truth does it hold, but Barcelona are in debt of about 138 million pounds or so, in terms of what they owe clubs for player transfers, for players like Dani Olmo from, I think, RB Leipzig, Rafinha from Leeds, Robert Lewandowski, about 8.9 million pounds is still owed to Bayern Munich, and things like that. So if the goal is to generate more revenue through the popularizing of the league, that broadcasters improve on their input, then it will be a good thing. But also, the argument I did make at the time was that the reasons why it was going to be very unpopular is, one, you're taking away this cherished home prize overseas. How many Barcelona fans, how many Villarreal fans can afford, one, to find the time, two, financially afford it, to buy a match day ticket, fly themselves over to the US, possibly pay for hotel for a night or two, possibly 2 nights, and then return back to Spain just to watch that one game, So then what do you rob of the season ticket holders that have paid for their season tickets to watch their teams, for every home game, Then the whole experience, the whole business that comes with the game of football, because a lot of times people are led to think that football as a business is about just the match day tickets and maybe a bit of club merchandise. It's beyond that. If you go to a stadium and you watch your team win, probably along the way you'll buy a snack. That snack that you buy, that drink that you buy, that's business. You've supported a small business or a big business along the way. Two, if you do win the game, the happiness that comes out of that is what sends people to local pubs and bars, to drink. They drink a few beers here and there. That's business. So it's it, football. It's an outing. It's an experience. It's a stress reliever as much as it can be a stress causer, depending on where I stand. So it was always never going to be a very, very popular decision to take a game away from Spain and have it played over the US there in the USA. So somebody did say the Villarreal boss, Marcelino, did say that it showed absolute disrespect to communicate the decision while his side were playing. He also added it's absolutely disrespectful to the club, professionals, and board of directors and fans. From here onwards, the club will send an official communication, but this is just what I think. Again, I do not know to what extent La Liga had consulted with these clubs to inform them of their plans and whether they had engaged them or involved them in their decision-making process whatsoever, or they sat as how the Spanish Federation, whether they had consulted these clubs and engaged them fully on whatever their decisions and thought process had been. Well, if they didn't, then it's not different from what our very own, de facto FIFA president, Engineer Moses Magogo, did with the new league. Basically, he tried to railroad everybody and bring his thing. Eventually, it was unpopular amongst the fans, amongst many clubs, even though they did accept to play in it, many Vipers, but at the end of the day, it had to be shelved. It had to be shelved to the side, and we'll wait when it will be brought back. Now, again, given his overzealousness, his high-handedness, he's taken the same format to the Kampala Regional League. Now, again, I have no problem taking it there because that was our call. That let it be taken to a lesser league and be tested. But for me, the question is that whoever you're taking it to, you've not given them prior notice. You've not engaged them as stakeholders of the game. It's like he's running his household where he wakes up and he tells his wife, today we're not eating beans, we're going to eat meat. Or my child is not going to go to that school, he's going to go to the other school. Because that's your family, that's how you want them. You have the money to pay that tuition for that school, take them there. It's like he's waking up and telling his wife, no, you won't go for coffee with the girls or with your ladies. So he wakes up and says, yeah, Kampala Regional League, here it is. And guess what? Because there's money attached to it, of course, some club officials, some players, or maybe clubs may be swayed, but whereas football is much about the money, there's more to it than just the money, And of course, for clubs within the regional league that may have more or less fewer fans and things like that, do not get enough publicity, not much scrutiny going on them and things like that. But my point is, if you're introducing changes to, of course, the beauty for Kampala Regional League is that they were the only regional league federation whose games were yet to start, while all the others have started. So, with that said, it's okay for them to try it there. But my point is that you ought to engage stakeholders. Even though you're the supreme leader of the game within your respective country, you do not just wake up and, bring changes to the game and expect people to embrace them and expect people to carry your water. No, they're just not going to do it. They're just not going to do it. That's not how it works. That's not how it should be working, So La Liga said it deeply regrets the postponement and described it as a low blow to the international profile of the entire football ecosystem. And again, now you see, this is what I was trying to explain earlier on, that for La Liga, being in support of the decision is about marketing the league. La Liga also believed staging an official match outside Spain would have been a decisive step in the global expansion of its competition, and that passing up such opportunities makes it difficult to generate new revenue. Again, you see, this is all in comparison. Like I've told you, that the Premier League is arguably the most broadcast revenue generating league that there is. And over time, you've noticed big, other big European leagues continuously fall behind the pecking order, whether it's the German Bundesliga, whether it's the Italian Serie A, the Spanish La Liga, and French League One, or whatever. The broadcast revenues have, in some form or shape, slumped. Now, in other words, the leagues are less popular. For example, every time you'll find football discussions outside those respective countries, you'll find that usually those leagues are playing second fiddle. I'll give you a bit of hierarchy in terms of perception that I do have, particularly here for Uganda. If you are to grade the popularity of those 5 top flight leagues in Europe, you'll find it's the Premier League first, the Spanish La Liga will be discussed second, the Italian Serie A will be discussed third, and then the German Bundesliga, and then the French League One, in that order, particularly for Uganda, without fear of contradiction, without an ounce of doubt. That's the hierarchy through which they're going to go about them. Now, what does that tell you? It tells you Premier League is more popular, Spanish La Liga is the second to that. But if you had to measure the distance between 1 and 2, it's a huge distance. It sounds simplistic in speaking when you grade them in that manner, but 85% of international football at a talk show time or broadcast time that is dedicated to football goes to the Premier League. Hardly are you going to find a radio station in Uganda doing commentary on a Spanish La Liga game, unless it's the El Clasico. They just do not do it. Why? Because the audience data shows it's not that popular. So, in the eyes of La Liga and its officials and its minders and its runners, the objective here is to try and popularize La Liga. Now, at the end of the day, whether this happens tomorrow or 2 years from now or 5 years from now, La Liga clubs will have to accept, and to some extent, their fans will have to accept, that if we want to dream bigger in terms of popularizing our sport, then we're going to have to take some hard decisions. Now, the thing about taking away one game is that it sets precedent for you to take away others. Now, I think what they need to agree on is what kind of games they take away. Because if you're going to market, let's say, a product, let's say you're a farmer and you want to pitch an international market, your pineapples, you're not going to choose the smallest from the garden. You're going to choose for the biggest, the juiciest, the nice looking. That's what you're going to take there to pitch. And once you get the green light in that market, then the small ones will follow, because you already have a product that has been accepted and appreciated. So in this particular case, La Liga will have to earmark games of a certain size. So, for example, of course, but when you look back a few years back, Barcelona, Valencia, Real Madrid, Valencia, Barcelona, Sevilla, those were big games. But today you have to look at Barcelona, Atletico, Real Madrid, Atletico, the El Clasico itself. What other big game are you going to look onto? I'm thinking, what? The Catalan derby between Barcelona and Espanyol. But again, it's more popular there. I do not think Espanyol is going to be that popular over in the US. In any case, even whatever games you take over there, chances are fans are going to come to the stadium because you have a Real Madrid, because you have a Barcelona attached to it, maybe an Atletico de Madrid. All the rest, take their Villarreal versus Real Mallorca, and nobody is going to come to watch. I'm not saying the stadium will be empty, but I'm saying the turn up won't be as the same as if you had Real Madrid coming or Barcelona or Atletico Madrid. So that's the point. So to conclude on this is that clubs will have to swallow the bitter pill and acknowledge or accept the fact that they have to agree to promote the game beyond the confines of Spain, that their domestic fans will have to suffer. Why do you think clubs in recent times have been doing more US tours during the course of the summer? Because it's a huge market. It's a huge market there for club merchandise, for football itself as a whole, in terms of viewership on TV and off TV, So it's a huge market that all leagues are racing to exploit. Just this summer, you had the Premier League, what they turned up to be the Premier League mini summer series that was played over in Atlanta. Guess the teams that were in there: Manchester United, Everton, Bournemouth, West Ham. Now, without Manchester United, I do not think that a Premier League mini summer series would have been as popular. Was never going to be the case. So even the Premier League also knew that we need to attach a big team, a team that is able of attracting numbers. Maybe next summer or the other summer, that team is going to be Chelsea, it's going to be Arsenal, it's going to be Man City, it's going to be Liverpool. But they know. So it's all to further India, their league, to those fans. Anyways, we'll leave it at that. But do let us know what your thoughts are in as far as things go. In as far as things are concerned, to the extent of those thoughts on the Spanish La Liga, possibly taking one of their games away over there to the USA. Then quickly, Liverpool are back to winning ways. Yeah, last night they beat up against Eintracht Frankfurt by 5-1. Hugo Ekitike scoring against his former side, Virgil van Dijk, Ibrahim Konate, Dominic Szoboszlai. They were the players on target for Liverpool, as well as Cody Gakpo, with Florian Wirtz picking up a brace of assists on the night in a space of about 4 minutes. To literally get himself off the mark, because that was his first goal contribution in a Liverpool jersey ever since joining them in the course of the summer as one of the most expensive players there is in the Premier League. Liverpool broke their own transfer record to sign Florian Wirtz before breaking that same record to sign Alexander Isak, who has only scored one goal that came in the EFL Cup against Southampton in the third round. So now, the way in which Liverpool started, of course, Mo Salah, I think Arne Slot has had the drumbeat in his ears about him needing to drop Mo Salah, and he dropped him for Hugo Ekitike, because Hugo Ekitike started with Alexander Isak in the same team. You had Cody Gakpo, you had Florian Wirtz, you had Dominic Szoboszlai and Curtis Jones in that midfield. You had, of course, the back four of Andy Robertson, Virgil van Dijk, Ibrahim Konate, and Jeremy Frimpong, although Jeremy Frimpong seemed to have suffered a muscle injury that got him withdrawn in the 19th minute of the game for Conor Bradley, with Georgie Mamadashvili in goal. Liverpool looked vulnerable to the counter-attack, but that was only on 2 occasions. One of those occasions resulting into a goal in the 26th minute by Christiansen. Now, I thought Eintracht Frankfurt did themselves no favors creating all that space. So when you see the ball that Andy Robertson plays into Hugo Ekitike to run and then score, it's because they had left large spaces or a huge chunk of space behind them. They tried to play with a very, very high line. Against Liverpool, you're going to be punished because they have very, very fast players. Ekitike, look at Cody Gakpo. If Salah was on the pitch, those are all pacey players that are going to, outrun majority of your defenders oftentimes. So beautiful goals. Then also 2 goals from set pieces. One set piece brought in by a corner kick brought in by Cody Gakpo, Virgil van Dijk scores. Another corner kick by Dominic Szoboszlai, Ibrahim Konate scores. Now, Liverpool have first scored 4 goals in the UEFA Champions League from set pieces. Yesterday they scored 2. You remember against Atletico de Madrid they scored 1. That goal scored by Virgil van Dijk, the winning goal in that game. And now when you look at the table standings, sorry, let's look at goals for. They've so far scored 8 goals, conceded 4, and have a goal difference of 4. So, in other words, half of their goals have come from set piece play. But guess what? Nobody is making the same noise about Liverpool as they are making about Arsenal scoring from set pieces. First of all, must I make it clear, categorically clear, crystal clear, there are no problem, 0 qualms whatsoever, a team scoring from set pieces. That's why they are part of the game. That's why every time you get a corner kick, a free kick closer to the opponent's goal, you literally have loads of the opposing team's players to occupy that area, the 18 yards box and the 16 yards box. Why? They are looking to gain an advantage. They see it as a goal scoring opportunity. They see it as a quarter chance that if that ball is floated in at the right pace, at the right height, and we sort of give it our effort, we could get a goal here. So I couldn't care any less if a team scored, let's say, 70 goals in a season campaign, and out of the 70 goals, 64 of them were set piece goals, and only 6 were from open play. I wouldn't give any what's ass about that. At the end of the day, what matters, if that's your strategy, it is your strategy. If it is a winning strategy, then why change it? It would be one thing to criticize teams for relying on set pieces if they were not working. For example, we've discussed money on several occasions on this channel, and part of our criticism was that Ruben Amorim was hell-bent on things that weren't really working. Particularly, for my instance, is playing Bruno Fernandes in that number 8 role because it wasn't working. So we kept hammering on it. Of course, in recent times, I wouldn't say it has worked effectively, but I would say it has improved a little bit and that they've gotten some results off of it. So if it's working, then why change it? It's the English that say, if it's not broken, do not try to fix it. Exactly that. So if the set pieces are working for Liverpool, why not use them? I have 0 qualms. But my question is, where are the negative ad peddlers, where are the naysayers who are always criticizing Arsenal for relying on set pieces? Why are they about Liverpool? Because 50% of their goals in the UEFA Champions League have come from set piece play. We're not hearing them. Suddenly, they've gone mute. Their tongues have lost their words. But anyways, it is what it is. But Liverpool, I thought, had a very, very brilliant game. Like I told you last night, I did not watch the game, but I managed to catch the highlights. And I mean, what a game of football did they have on their hands. You ought to appreciate them for one, the effort. Dominic Szoboszlai scoring from long range or distance. It's something that I don't want to say expect, but from distance, he's capable of doing that. He's capable of punishing you. He's capable of punishing you if you're not careful. If you're not careful, he's going to come at you really, really fast. He's going to shoot that ball from distance. Oftentimes, it's on target. So he can't score those goals. But anyways, so the question is, are Liverpool back? There's nothing to make me believe that they aren't. Because a big team like Liverpool, to get back to winning ways, to get a semblance of consistency. And by the way, you had Florian Wirtz force a goalkeeper into a save of a free kick. But shove all that to the side. Here's what happens. For a team like Liverpool, when you had a bad spell like they've had, and a part of me thinks it may have been a blessing in disguise. I do not know. It will take the entire course of the season to approve that. Liverpool having their blip so early in the season is a good thing if they can recover and then go on to be better for the rest of the season. Usually what happens, no matter how good a team is, during the course of the season, you wait for their blip. When is their blip going to come? When is their blip going to come? And eventually it does come. Eventually it does come. And when it comes, when teams experience those blips, the big question is always, how fast do we get out of this blip? How fast can we recover from this? How can we? So, for example, if Arsenal went and lost a game tomorrow and drew another, that in itself is a blip. How fast they can ride themselves out of that blip is what then keeps their momentum, or is what keeps their title hopes going. Otherwise, if you stay longer, then chances are the gap is only going to grow bigger. Excuse me. Chances are the gap is only going to grow bigger between you and those and your opponents that you may be pushing the title with for. So again, the other thing is that 5-1. Look at the standout performance. Ektiki, for me, I think is their best striker, especially now that Alexander Isak is yet to find his modes. 2, Cody Gakpo, look good. 3, Plan Wits, that confidence. You're going to carry that into the Brentford game. Now, Brentford is not the easiest of opponents to play against. Like I did tell you, that when you look at some of the big games they played this season, they managed to force Chelsea into a 2-2 draw. They only lost Man City by 1-0. They beat up against Manchester United. Regardless of what you think about Manchester United, they are still a big team with big players, with a big squad and very expensive players. So you look at that and think to yourself, it's not going to be an easy trip to go to the GTEC Stadium. But if Liverpool needed any form of belief, any inspiration, it was always going to be derived from that game against Eintracht Frankfurt. The two opponents are different. Brentford play with the back five, with 3 players ahead of them and another 2. So it's a 5-3-2 kind of system, So Liverpool will really have to work hard to break that mold of a low block or a middle block, depending on how they set up to play. But this sort of emphatic victory against Eintracht Frankfurt really does or should give Liverpool the much needed confidence going into the weekend to face off with Brentford. So if they can go and beat up against Brentford, because I think amongst their fixtures prior to the international break of November, they have to play Manchester City. So on the other side, Arsenal have to keep up pace so that by the time they get to that fixture, if you Arsenal win all your fixtures and get the chance to expand the gap between you and those teams, the best possible result is if those two teams draw against each other. Because if one wins, then they keep up in pace with you. But we won't go into that pit that far. My point is, I'm not saying Liverpool are back but if they can go to Brentford and win, then I'll be saying they are back. Why? Because winning that game and how they go to Brentford and manage to collect all 3 points, whether it's a 1-0, whether it's a 5-0 thumping, whether it's a 4-3, the point will be they need to win. They need to get back that momentum. They need to restore that belief that we can still win games, whether it's late in the game, whether it's early in the game, during the game, whichever way. They have to believe that that they are capable, that they are back to winning ways. So, and that they need to build on that. But if, let's say, if they were to go to Brentford and lose, then everything they did against Eintracht Frankfurt will pass for a one-off. Will have passed for a one-off, in that sort of sense. But anyways, it is what it is. Do let me know what your thoughts are on that about Liverpool and more. What are your thoughts about that? Then quickly, the UEFA Europa League. Yes, that action does come underway today. Like I told you, there are some early kickoff games, but particularly for me, my attention will be on Aston Villa, who are looking for a third consecutive victory in the competition, having beaten up against Bologna on match day 1 by a goal to nil and beat up against Feyenoord by 2 goals to nil on match day 2. So my attention will be on them. Then Nottingham Forest, the first game, they drew against Real Betis by 2 goals to 2. Then the second game, they lost to Midtjylland by 3 goals to 2. So those are some of the games that I'll be looking forward to. It's going to be Sean Dyche's first game. The advantage for him, they're at home against FC Porto. So remember, the last game, still they were at home and lost to Midtjylland by 3-2. So he needs to convince Evangelos Marinakis as quickly as possible that they made the right decision in appointing him until June 2027. Anyways, then so Aston Villa will be in action. That game should be coming at 7:45 p.m. It's African time, while the game against Nottingham Forest and FC Porto will come at 4 p.m. Of course, there's so many other games in as far as the UEFA Europa League is concerned, including Olympic Lyon up against FC Basel. Should be an entertaining game. Yes, so that game should be coming. Then also, what other game? Braga versus Crvena Zvezda, big game. Fenerbahce versus VfB Stuttgart. Look forward to. Excuse me. Apologies on that. Anyways, also the UEFA Conference League is on. Crystal Palace are at home against Lanaka. So do not miss out on that action. Should be coming your way. Like I was saying, Aston Villa are in very good form. When you look at their recent performances across all competitions, particularly, of course, the Premier League, you see that they've been winning, including winning up against Tottenham Hotspur over the weekend by 2 goals to 1. So they're in very decent form. When you go further back, they won 2-1 against Burnley, they won 3-1 against Fulham, they won all draw and the 0-0 draw against Everton. So they're unbeaten in their last 5, winning 3 and drawing 2. When you look at the UEFA Europa League, they've won 2 out of 2. So you can see that they built themselves a bit of momentum to sort of almost guarantee that they will win today when they take on Go Ahead Eagles. It's an away game. It won't be easy. Go Ahead Eagles is not an easy team from the Dutch Eredivisie, but let's see what Unai Emery will be cooking for that. Players like Morgan Rogers should be the kinds of players for whom, or amongst whom, issues revolve around John McGinn, the captain, of course, Amadou Onana, for as long as he's fit to play. Of course, like I keep saying, with Mr. Yuri Tillemans, then the goalkeeper, Emi Martinez, can be complacent sometimes, but he's a very good goalkeeper. So Daniel Malen, he scored a brace against Burnley in their 2-1 victory. So very good player. Yeah, I think they can go ahead and win. They are in that sort of good feel moment or a feel good factor. They have it on their side, on them, to have the confidence to go and pick all 3 points over Go Ahead Eagles. Then briefly, I wanted us to talk about Harry Kane, because yesterday he did score as Bayern Munich beat up against Braga by 4 goals to nil. It's the kind of result that I for one did expect. I for one did expect, but of course, Nicholas Jackson among the goal scorers, as well as Luis Diaz, and then Carl, but Harry Kane scoring in yet another goal in the UEFA Champions League. That's what 5 out of 3. Yes, 5 goals in 3 games. You look now we're talking about a player who scored 11 goals in 13 appearances last season. So if he continues with this kind of trajectory, then he's bound to score much more. We're talking about a 32-year-old who is sort of getting finer, aging like fine wine. 7 games in the German Bundesliga, 12 goals scored. So that's already 15 goals to his name. But across all competitions, there's more to that, because in the DFB Pokal, he did score already 2. So that's 17. And I mean, he's just brilliant. He's just brilliant. Everything they do it for him. They know he's their target man. They know he never disappoints when it comes to buying that ball into the back of the net. So they trust him. They rely on him. They carry the ball for him. You can only, of course, very soon they will have some bigger tests. For example, they will have to play against Arsenal after the November international break. That game will be at the Emirates, but you never know. Football, like politics, a day could be long or a week could be very long. You could go and suddenly you have injuries and it's worse. But they're unbeaten this season. Bayern Munich, they won all their opening games in the German Bundesliga. They've done the same in the UEFA Champions League. That's 10. They've won their game in the DFB Pokal. So really, there's nothing. They're just looking good. In fact, just recently, or was it yesterday or the other day, a Vincent Company was awarded with a new contract, a new 2-year contract. So, okay, he's only into his 2nd season with the club, but they saw what he did for them last season, winning for them the German Bundesliga. And I thought, of course, they did not make it to the DFB Pokal final because that was won by Wolfsburg, I think. So, but in the UEFA Champions League, they reached the quarterfinals, in which they were knocked out by Inter Milan, who eventually ended up in the final. So you could sort of accept that. But for me, they are one of the favorites for this season is UEFA Champions League. I like your shirt. Thank you, Pedri. Good morning. How are you doing? Do not forget to like the broadcast while you're here with us. You had disappeared for the last couple of days. Are you okay? Is all good? 6-1 Barcelona against Olympiacos. I mean, literally, the referee made it easy for you when one man was forced off. So after that, before that, the game was while Barcelona were leading, they were leading 2-1 because they had just conceded a penalty. It wasn't a so easy game. It wasn't being a so easy game. So, but once Olympiacos went down to 10 men, they then made it so easy. I mean, Fermin Lopez, Wainwright, Marcus Rashford, 2 quick goals. Of course, Lamine Yamal scoring from the penalty spot, and things like that. By the way, at the time, I wanted Lamine Yamal to give the penalty to Fermin Lopez for him to get his hat trick and secure the ball, the match the ball, because I would have thought that he would have gone ahead to score at any other opportune time. That's for Lamine Yamal, but it is what it is. It is what it is. So you're saying you're good. Thanks. How are you? I'm all right. I'm okay. I hate Lamine right now because of his girlfriend. What has his girlfriend done, and who is his girlfriend? Last I checked, there were rumors that he was dating a much older woman. I do not know. I do not know it to be a gospel fact, but there were allegations that his woman was was in her 30s. Was it 30s or 28? And something like that. You remember when he did his 18th birthday and when he was out there during the course of the summer, you say she's called Nikki Nicole. Search her name up on Google. Okay, I'll look it up. You say she's disgusting. You don't like how she's changing him. How is she changing him? Is it in terms of his behavior? Is it in terms of his responsibilities around the team? Because sometimes when young players of the age of Lamine Yamal get these spouses or partners, it becomes a bit they sort of, I don't want to say they become controlling, but there's a way they will sort of make you behave unprofessionally sometimes. I mean, she's only 25, according to Google. Nikki Nicole, she's only 25. Born in Rosario, Santa Fe. I mean, okay. From Argentina. Did Messi link him up with this model of beauty? You say she's not bad in terms of looks, but in terms of actions. At least you and I can agree that she's good looking. But yeah, I was saying, you see, women make men do things that ideally they wouldn't have loved to do, but for whatever their reasons could be. So for a player like Lamine Yamal, who is still young, only 18 years of age, I mean, in some cases, he's going to do things to please the girlfriend, even though they may not be popular amongst either his fans or the Barcelona fans in general, or the Spanish national team fans, and that kind of thing. But it is what it is, It is what it is. For as long as I remember we discussed Lamine Yamal, and somebody, the particular question that was posed to me, or that was put to me, how does he get to go on to have a very long career like that of Cristiano Ronaldo or Lionel Messi while staying at the top and practically just continue improving? And and I said, one, he has to be very lucky not to get, career-ending injuries or career-threatening injuries the way Ousmane Dembele had during his time at Barcelona, and he sort of went, out of the radar. He needs to literally stay fit almost all the time. He needs to avoid injuries as much as possible. So if he gets luck with that, then he will be okay. Then two, the other thing was discipline. How do you stay grounded? How do you be a star and still remain grounded? How do you not let that get over to your head? Because for some stars, it gets to their head and they become disrespectful, particularly to their teammates, to their managers. They start reporting late to training. They sort of develop that I don't care kind of attitude and things like that. And I'm hoping that Lamine Yamal is not headed towards that direction. If you're saying that his girlfriend's actions are the ones that you do not like, but yeah, Nikki Nicole, is such a beauty, this Argentine born, for as long as she's not getting him, sleepless while they spend lots of time on social media or doing, sweet nothings and shenanigans and things like that, But yeah, she's okay. I mean, 25, that's a difference of about what, 7? That's okay. That's okay. Reminds me of what, Gerard Piqué and Shakira, although those were much mature when they started dating. But yeah, I think they will be okay. Although, so Pedri, what did she do exactly to to sort of cause your detest for her? What did she do particularly to evoke those emotions out of you? Because I've rarely have I followed football and extended it to their spouses and things like that. Apart from some unique cases where we had, I think Thibaut Courtois dated Kevin De Bruyne's girlfriend. You remember the case of John Terry and was it Ryan Rutledge? Then you remember Ryan Giggs had an issue and things like that, which the kinds of things that happen in everyday life or in normal life, in that sort of sense. So, anyways, thank you so much, Pedri. I think I don't know if you dropped off or anything, but thank you so much for being part of today's broadcast. It's 19 minutes, almost 20 minutes past the hour of 10 a.m. here in Kampala, Uganda, and I suspect 20 minutes past 8 a.m. over in the UK. I suspect it's around the same time over in Spain. But thank you so much for being part of today's broadcast. I wish you the best of a wonderful day. I'll see you guys next time in tonight's broadcast. We'll come back on here and engage more on football. Stay blessed and have a good day. Bye bye for now.